Yo, what is going on, guys? It is your boy Hyga, and today I have a video that I've been wanting to talk about, or I wanted to make a video talking about this topic for a little bit. I've been thinking about it for a few days, and I'm done procrastinating. So hopefully I can try and give a little bit of insight in my experiences with the two and whatnot. But today, as you can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about Adrenaline versus Precise Dagger. Now, this is more so focused for Gunlancer specifically. I'm not talking about any other classes or anything like that, but I have been using this thing, which is an Excel sheet, which you can see how much damage you'll get from Adrenaline, Keen Blow, and Precise Dagger, all that stuff based on your crit rate and crit damage. I will put a link to this in the description so you can check for your own class, but this is going to be more Blue Gunlancer based because that is often a question that people have. Should I use Adrenaline? Should I use Precise Dagger? Because there are people like Mustang Kim who use Precise Dagger and obviously do very well with it, and then most of like the other people use Adrenaline. So let's talk about the pros and cons, right? Adrenaline obviously on paper is statistically much better because it does not have a negative. It gives roughly the same amount of crit as Precise Dagger. Precise Dagger gives 20%. Adrenaline at 6 stacks gives 15%. And it also gives you an additional 6% attack power. Now, one of the things that is not good, or one of the cons for Adrenaline, is the fact that when you pair it with a engraving like Cursed Doll, because attack power when applied through engravings is additive, the amount of damage that Cursed Doll gives you is reduced because there are like diminishing returns, right? So it's not multiplicative. So instead of it being like roughly 15.9% damage that you get from Cursed Doll, you get around 15.1. Now, if you use an engraving like Stabilized Status, instead, you do not have that issue. And I asked my friend, pretty sure he's right, but the difference between using Adrenaline with Cursed Doll versus Adrenaline with Stabilized Status is about 2.9% difference. Now, obviously, if you want to Atropine, then Stabilized Status is going to be its own little issue, but that is just a little thing. Now, the other big con for Adrenaline is the fact that you have to stack it, right? It's 6 stacks, and Blue Gunlancer isn't exactly a class that has skills that are sub 5-second cooldown and that can hold the stacks very easily. In order to maintain the stacks, you either need to have a certain rotation going, certain tripods active, or you need to use your utility skills, which is usually what ends up happening. Now, for Blue Gunlancers, most of the time, we end up using 2 utility skills, and that is Nella, Velocious Energy, which is our shield, DR, Purify, or Dash Upper Fire, which is our counter weak point stagger skill, right? Those 2 are utility skills. The rest of your skills are synergy and like damage skills, right? That's how I look at it. Now, ideally, you would like to have your Dash Upper Fire or your Nella for when they are needed, for when a counter is needed in the raid, or when a Purify is needed in the raid, or DR, or anything like that, to space it out with other supports, especially if you don't have a Purify already and it's a raid that requires a lot of Purify, like Vaulting Gate 1 or Vicus Gate 2, sub 65 bars, or little things like that, right? Or hard mode, Brelshaza Gate 4. There's a lot of different places where a Purify can really come in handy. So you don't want to have to waste it to keep your Adrenaline stacks. Now, with Precise Dagger, the main con is that obviously you lose 12% crit damage. So it gives you 20% crit rate in exchange for 12%. In exchange for reducing 12% crit damage. Now, the thing is, you don't have to stack it. So, the comparison that's always made with Adrenaline versus Precise Dagger that they don't always mention is that it's Adrenaline at 6 stacks. The Adrenaline that is often compared to Precise Dagger is Adrenaline at 6 stacks versus Precise Dagger. If you're at Adrenaline 1 stacks, 2 stacks, 3 stacks, 4 stacks, 5, it doesn't matter. It's 6 stacks. That's the important one because that's the big crit rate increase, right? Especially because Gunlancer or Blue Gunlancer, especially the hallucination build, you need all the crit that you can get. Now, I saw Saint 1 looking at this sheet earlier. I didn't even know this existed, but I used it as reference. So recently I was using Keen Blunt Precise Dagger, and so with my build, what I was using is you want to look here on the left, it's crit damage. On the top, it's crit rate. Now, without Precise Dagger, this is obviously before Keen Blunt and Precise Dagger, I had about 47% crit rate. So we're going to be over here. We're going to be on this cell right here. And at base, you have 200% crit damage, right? So we're going to be looking here. Now, 28.21. For me, I have a bracelet that gives me 10% crit damage. I have a sail on it. 8% crit damage. So we're going to be looking somewhere in here. When you add Keen Blunt and Precise Dagger to the build, you get roughly 28.5% damage increase from the two engravings. Now, obviously, looking at this chart, you do not want to be in the orange or the red, because as you can see, this is equivalent to like a normal engraving, like a 16% engraving, and disrespect. That's what it is. It's the equivalent of using a normal 16% engraving and disrespect. Yellow is the equivalent of two normal engravings, like two 16%. And then green is the equivalent of grudge and a 16%. So it's like a 20% and a 16%. So those are the ones that are going to be getting the biggest damage boosts. Now, whereas we look at adrenaline, this is just for adrenaline. This is not adrenaline and Keen Blunt. So we're going to take into account the crit damage that we get from it, right? So like I said, we're at about 45% crit, and Keen Blunt gives us 50% crit damage. So that means adrenaline gives us 19.10% crit. Since I have a sail, you can assume it's like 258-ish. So let's just say 19.5% damage from adding adrenaline to the build. So two engravings giving me 28% versus one engraving giving me 19.5. Obviously, adrenaline is stronger. Like I said, that is adrenaline at 6 stacks. And that's kind of where the issue lies. If you're watching this video and you are wondering which one you should use, the plain and simple answer is if you want more damage, adrenaline. If you want more comfort, Precise Dagger. In my opinion, the damage difference realistically isn't that different. Especially if you have lower gems. If your Gunlancer is an alt, if they're 1445, or if you just got them to 1460, or if you're, just got them to 1490, I actually recommend Precise Dagger. I think Precise Dagger is probably better for you. When you're still learning the class, getting used to the utility of the class, and having low level gems, because I have 5,500 hours. I've been playing Gunlancer for thousands of hours. I've done every raid with Gunlancer, and still the adrenaline stacks gets to me sometimes. And there's sometimes where if you use things too sporadically, you literally cannot maintain the stacks. So rather than having to focus on maintaining the stacks to keep your damage, and focus on doing the utility portion of a Gunlancer, right? Making sure you get your taunts, making sure you have your synergies applied, making sure you're getting counters when they're available, making sure you're applying DR for your teammates if necessary, having the Purify ready for your teammates, having the Stagger ready for your teammates. If there's a weak point check, making sure that your weak point skills are available, having a Battlefield Shield ready, just in case you need to protect like a Sork, a Summoner, or a class that doesn't have a lot of tenacity to make sure that they can get their damage off. There's so many things that you also need to focus on. So I think if you are an alt, if you're making a Gunlancer, thinking about it, I don't think Precise Dagger is bad at all, because also, to top everything off, it's way cheaper. Way cheaper, because you're combining it with things like Barricade, Stabilized Status, Grudge. I've seen people run Spirit Absorption. Wouldn't recommend it. But, yeah. Precise Dagger, Barricade, Precise Dagger, Stabilized Status, Precise Dagger, Grudge, Precise Dagger, Curse Doll. Most of those combinations are going to be very cheap. Even if you want to use the Hallucination build, you can go ahead and throw on Keen Blunt too. Not as much damage, but it's okay. I think having that would be better, because you wouldn't have to worry about stacks, and you can just do your thing. I don't think it's a bad choice at all. Less damage, but again, The stacks is the important thing. It's maintaining the stacks. Now, let me see if I can pull this up. Let me see if I can pull this up. So, I personally do not use... where is it? That's 21 minutes. Okay. I believe these are 2 separate Gate 6 runs. Now, I personally do not use the DPS meters, but I have a friend who does. So, I wanted to show you guys something. So, this 1561 Gunlancer is me. These are Brelshaza hard mode Gate 6, I believe is what it is. Let me double check, make sure, because I know I had a Gate 5 parse in here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure both of these are Gate 6. Both of these are Gate 6 runs. Now, this run, I did 3.3 million DPS. In the run a week or 2 later, I got 4.2 million DPS. Obviously, on the same item level, not much has changed. What changed, right? Because a million DPS is a lot. On the 4.2, I was using Precise Dagger. And on the 3.3, I was using Adrenaline. They're both the same build regardless. Literally, all I switched out was Precise Dagger for Adrenaline. Technically, I did also move Stabilize Status for Cursed Doll. But that won't make as much of a difference because Precise Dagger doesn't have the attack power, so it doesn't reduce the effect of Cursed Doll. So, for me, one of the things that I'm going to work on is using Adrenaline and getting used to maintaining the stacks. Because I feel like there's different kinds of players in this game. And there are the players who maybe started with a support character. So when you are learning the game, you are learning how to make sure your mark uptime is good, having your DR up when it needs to be, purifies if you need that, or, you know, all that stuff, damage boosts. There's a different thing you focus on. For a damage dealer, you're focusing on getting out your damage as much as you can, when you can, and like finding out where you can greed to make sure you get the most damage output as possible. For a Gunlancer, it's kind of a mix of those things. For me personally, when I was looking at guides or adjusting to playing a blue Gunlancer, I wasn't looking at greeding damage. I wasn't looking at how to squeeze every little bit of damage out of my class. I was trying to just do damage and make sure that I was doing all that I could for my team. I was kind of like the middleman. I was trying to make sure I got the counters. I was trying to make sure I had the shields. I was trying to make sure that I had the stagger. I was trying to make sure that I had the weak point. I was trying to, you know, I was trying to handle all of the utility side of things and let my friends focus on the damage because they were playing damage dealers. And where I am now is I need to dive in to that damage. Need to dive into that damage mindset, that sort of selfish mindset. And I don't necessarily mean selfish as a bad thing, but as a DPS in this game, you kind of have to be. You have to learn to be selfish and greed a bit in order to really pump, as people say. So what I'm working on is diving into that kind of mindset and bridging the gap, because I don't want to just not run any utility, right? There's some people who will sub out Nella for Surge Cannon and Dash Upper Fire for Shield Shock, and you have no good counter, and you're just all big damage and clunky. Like, no. Now, realistically, you could play something like Red. You have higher uptime on your synergy. You have more consistency in them, obviously, because of that. Your taunt is more consistent because you are playing Swiftness, but then you are locked to head attacking and you do not have Battlefield Shield. And I like Battlefield Shield. I prefer blue. That's why I like to play blue. And I'm trying to do the best that I can on blue as possible. So I think I pretty much talked about all that I wanted to. I will end it by saying adrenaline, statistically better, but precise dagger is for sure easier. And I think that's perfectly okay if you want to run it, because the damage differential isn't that different. Unless the adrenaline, like if you're to compare two Gunlancers that have the same thing, one has precise dagger, one has adrenaline, unless the adrenaline Gunlancer has literally 100% uptime throughout the entire raid, the damage I don't think is going to be that different. Because it's very hard to hold 100% uptime. Also, I will mention this. My friend mentioned it to me. Adrenaline would give, like we went over earlier, about 19.5% damage to my build. But with my uptime, because he uses the meters and he can see my uptime on my buffs and synergies and all that stuff, with 60% uptime, which is usually what I would average, about 60% uptime on Adrenaline 6 stacks, the damage that Adrenaline would give me is about 11.7. So keep that in mind. 11.7 from an engraving. Obviously, as I get better with maintaining the stacks, as I work on getting higher level gems, higher level cooldown gems, which is what I'm working on, that will get better going forward. So that's what I'm going to try and do. But I wanted to make this video because I know some people are kind of in between on it, and I don't think it needs to be anything that you need to overthink. If you want comfort, if you want to do well, it's also budget, you save a lot of gold doing it. I don't think Precise Dagger is bad at all, to be honest. I still have my setup for it, just in case I end up leaning towards it again, but I do want to try. And as someone who has put in hours and hours and hours and hours, I would be disappointed in myself if I could not bring out the best of my class, all of the damage that I could possibly get with all of the utility that I could possibly get, and just make it as good as it could possibly be. If there's any other videos you would like to see me make, please do let me know down in the comment section below. I appreciate you guys. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day. I apologize for ranting, but I think usually when I do these rant type videos where I don't cut too much, you guys enjoy them. I think a lot of people are very just kind of like want to have dialogue and just bounce ideas off of people, because everyone is trying to improve. If you have any tips, questions, or like I said, tips for other Gunlancers or for me, don't be afraid to leave them down in the comment section below. At the end of the day, I feel like we should be lifting each other up and working with each other as opposed to putting each other down, which surprisingly a lot of Gunlancers do. There are a lot of really freaking mean Gunlancers, not gonna lie. So I don't want to be that guy. My bad if I have been. But anyways, see you guys later. Have a good one. Peace.